Hello and welcome back to episode 23 of the Boxing Social podcast in association with Betfred, with me, your host, Rob Tebbutt. Before we get started, as always, I'd like to remind everybody to please follow, subscribe, turn on those notifications for all of your latest boxing news. But now that's out of the way, I am delighted to be joined once again by the returning Boxing Social co-host, Mr. Barry Jones. How are you, Barry? Nice to see you.
Yeah, good. You've lost some weight, mate.
I have lost a little bit of weight, yeah. They had to remove one of my lungs, you see, so it took a little bit of weight off.
The other one, you're fabulous then.
But no,
Oxygen's overrated.
Yeah, it is. Until you don't have much of it, I have to say that. Well, you don't realise how much you love oxygen until one goes away.
Do you think it's all those years of you talking crap have sort of worn your lung out? I don't know. Like maybe
it might have something to do with it. Yeah, it might have.
There's a load of people I know then who are in trouble, me included.
But no, it is nice to see you. It's nice to have you back in. We are running slightly late today, so enough of the foreplay. Let's dive straight into it. This weekend, Anthony Joshua versus Oleksandr Usyk, unified heavyweight titles, big full stadium, which is great because we haven't had that for such a long time. I'm excited, Barry. Are you?
I am. This is like. Let me get this a bit closer. This is really. To be fair, all of Joshua's fights have been quite testy in many ways. Since Dillian White, to be fair, the resume of fighters have been, for this generation, have been pretty good. But this is the one where it's so intriguing because you're not sure how he will react. You can say it's for every fight, but it's a real intrigue. What Usyk does so well, will that work against Joshua? And if it does, can Joshua counteract that? Because this is a style, a southpaw. I think he's only boxed one southpaw as a pro. Maybe I might be wrong with that. I think it is, and that was a long time ago. So this is a real world class southpaw that he's not used to the movements, the way they spin off, to the right rather than to the left. There's loads of different things there that he's going to have to, that he hasn't come up against before. But like everyone, you tend to think if he can impose his physical presence, then you have to make him a favourite. I feel.
Mm.
Am I right?
It seems
I say with lack of confidence. To be honest.
It seems to be the general kind of beat on the street is that Joshua is going to be bigger, utilise that size and strength advantage. But having said that, we've seen the photos of Joshua recently. Obviously, we saw him in the Ruiz rematch and the Pulev fight. He's not the big, bulky 250 plus pounds that he was when he boxed Carlos Takam or in the Vladimir Klitschko fight. So he seems slimmer, more streamlined than we've seen him in the past, which kind of indicates that maybe we're going to see him carry on from the Ruiz rematch and parts of the Pulev fight and box on the outside. Well,
he don't win the fight then. He doesn't win the fight. I can't see how he can. And I understand that. I understand people might think that if you just rush at Usyk, he'll just pick you apart. And that's true. We've seen that in my opinion, against Chisora. Chisora just ran at him pretty much, as crude as he is. And except for being the physical presence being uncomfortable for Usyk a little bit, it was still a relatively straightforward fight for him, I felt. Mentally and even physically at times. Once he got the grips with him, he was fine. And also, with doing that, with rushing a guy like that, to maintain that level of that physicality and that pace, beyond 5 rounds for anyone, but certainly a heavyweight, is near enough impossible. So you were weighing. And of course, what Usyk is really good at is saving space in the tank for later on. He does his whole career. He makes you work hard. Now, he usually makes you work hard by his physical presence, imposing himself on you, using his front foot to put you under pressure, make you feel you're under pressure when you're not. But he can also do it because he's fleet-footed as well, as we've seen in the past, and certainly as an amateur. Then you rushing him, he can ole you. Ole, make you miss, and then you're tired. Because I tell you something, missing is only, for tiring you out, is only superseded by taking punches. Missing when you throw is so draining, mentally and physically, because you panic mentally because you're missing, which is not a good thing, and you're trying to figure out why. And physically, you got to pull. You don't get that satisfaction of hitting the target and pushing back. You got to go. You extend the fully, and you overreach. Sometimes you got to pull that arm all the way back, and there's no satisfaction with it, and it has an effect on you massively. So he has to be aggressive, Joshua, but it has to. And I think where I give him a good chance is everything has to be neat, and he is quite a neat fighter. He punches down the track, everything's straight. He turns from the waist and the shoulders when he throws his straight punches, and that will help him dramatically. But he's not going to have success all the time. And he has to make sure, maybe coming lighter, this is why he's coming a bit lighter, that those middle rounds, certainly I think for Usyk, those 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is where he flourishes the most for me. Usyk is where, because you're tiring and he maintains that pace or puts more pressure on you, starts throwing more combinations. He never loads up with any shot. It's always fluency, but accuracy is brilliant. And that's where Joshua may become a bit lighter. He wants to maybe have a little bit more in the tank so he can maintain that pressure for longer.
You mentioned Oleksandr Usyk's last fight against Derek Chisora. There seems to be this perception that Oleksandr Usyk is not the same fighter as a heavyweight as he was as a cruiserweight. What do you think to that?
Yeah, of course he's not. Because he can't do what because he's not an imposing figure as he was as a cruiserweight. That's just how it goes. That's understandable. No, see, Holyfield was still the same fighter because he boxed the same way, but he was always on you, right in your face. And Usyk's a bit more guy. Holyfield's the better fighter for me by far, but he's been more guile to his work. So he's an imposing figure, but it's a mirage for him because he's on you, but he's not on you. And it's all with that front foot. So you see with Usyk, he dips a lot. But when he dips, he goes low. I gotta stand up and show you. When he goes low, but that front foot slides forward, he gets a wider stance. So he goes low and he just steals a bit of space for that front foot. So when he comes back up, he's 3 inches, 4 inches, 6 inches closer to you. And you panic, and he'll dip low again, and you move back, and he puts you under pressure that way. So even if he's not throwing punches, you're panicking inside. Even if you're not major panic, you're having to adjust, you're worrying. So rather than you thinking about what you're going to do, you're always, even when you're trying to be aggressive, you're always reacting to his movements, which is when you're reacting, it's hard to regulate your breathing, as if when you're on top and you know what you're going to do, you can go... and you're ready to work or whatever it is, but when you don't know what's happening, you're always like this with the breath, and that's what tires you out. The belly will tell you more than anyone, of course, that he was blown out of his ass after 6 rounds. It seemed like he was doing okay, and because he was trying to be competitive, and he landed a few shots. But actually, with Usyk, he's always thinking all the time. He plays the long game in a fight. He don't think about the first. If he can knock you out, he will, but he don't care almost. He's not losing rounds, by the way. Sometimes he'll lose the odd round, but he's not losing rounds, but he's not massively dominating rounds. He's just making you work harder than you want to work all the time for every second when he's doing nothing, but pretending he's on top of you, making you feel the pressure without there being any pressure there. And then when you do make a mistake, he picks you off.
Those early rounds, you make a good point there. Obviously, the Tony Bellew fight, the Derek Chisora fight, getting that front foot in between the front foot of his opposition, making them work without really doing too much. There seems to, again, be this perception that Usyk is a slow starter. Having said that, I know you don't agree, but having said that, Anthony Joshua, those early rounds, is it important? If so, how important is it for him to make him feel the heavyweight punching power early in the fight?
With anything you have, whether it's speed, intelligence, good looks like I had, no, but you have to, I know, I can't help myself. But if it's power, especially power, you make him feel it. I never had power, but you make him feel it early. So you go out and you whack him. Nicky Piper could punch. Remember Nicky Piper from the 90s? Good fighter, world title challenger. He had a really good right hand. So he used to walk out, and every time he'd throw that right hand first. And he got the fastest knockout in the world for a little while. It was like 10.3 seconds or something silly like that, or 11 seconds. But, but that was it. But if he didn't knock you out, you felt it. And I think Golovkin does it. He hits you anywhere. Canelo does it. Hits you on the arms. You feel the power. And I think for Joshua, it's the solid jab. I think what I look at the Braders fight. I know it's a smaller guy, but that I look at that and I think, if I'm in my memory, my memory, I look at that and I think he had more trouble with him possibly than most, and it was because of the front feet. So Bradis was really, with a southpaw, you always say, get your front, as an orthodox fighter against a southpaw, you get your left foot on the outside of his right foot, because then your jab's coming over the top, and then you're in control of the space. That's what theoretically. And also, he has to turn to throw his backhand, which would be his left hand. His jab comes inside yours, so when he turns, he's lined up for your right hand, your backhand there, your right hand. And that's how you get him, so you're over the top. Southpaws do it to orthodox fighters more naturally because they're used to boxing them all the time. So their foot's on the outside and they do it that way. He did that, Bradis. He was always trying to slide in to the left. So always his foot on the outside, always to get that line that right hand up, get that jab over the top as well. And I think for Joshua, the jab is very important for him. And hit him on the chest. All this movement and the high guard is good. The gloves are high. He's hard to hit clean. Usyk, even when you hit him, he sort of takes the sting out with the gloves. Aim for the chest. There's a gap there. The gloves stop here. There's a, if you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, the gloves stop just about halfway down the forearms. There's a gap there that you can aim for the chest, and that aim for the chest will knock him off balance. And that, if you honest, it all boils down to that for me. I think, the way Usyk fights, he slides back and forth, and he's hard to hit clean, but ultimately he blocks a lot of shots, and then just keeps nicking your space, stealing your space, and making you panic. Now, if Joshua's jab, and if I want to get the foot on the outside to get that weight on the jab, can push him back, then Usyk can't be as effective, and he has to box a different way, and that helps Joshua. Because then what Usyk's strength is in making you blow at your backside after halfway is no longer there. He has to go back to the dancing and moving. And then you got to put pressure on him. And again, it's educated pressure. It's not Chisora pressure, following around the ring, swinging like a lunatic, hoping you catch him. And if he does, you're in trouble. It's cutting the ring off. Again, cutting the ring off against Usyk, as we've seen as an amateur, is a very difficult thing to do. But again, you're taking the initiative away from him. And I think that's important. So that if Joshua hits him with a solid shot, especially a jab, and it's a good jab, and it doesn't push Usyk back, then I'm changing my mind about who I think is going to win the fight. Pretty much. I think then Usyk has massive control. If he can block it and still slide that front foot forward, I can't see how Joshua, unless he hits him with a great shot and knocks him out, I can't see how he wins. But if he can use that jab smartly, if he can get that foot on the outside, and if he can just stop Usyk in his tracks and make him feel the power early, this is what you pretty much asked, and I've babbled on, but make him feel the power early and make him have to readjust what he's doing, then I think Joshua has a great chance.
It sort of reminds me, like, when we talk about that point of making him feel the power early and keeping him on the outside, another fight that we broke down, spectacularly wrong, by the way, was Vasily Lomachenko versus Teofimo Lopez. Yeah. Sort of similar parallels to that fight in that regard.
But Usyk doesn't box really like Lomachenko.
No. There's this perception that he's a big version of Lomachenko, or Lomachenko's a smaller version of him. What he does,
I box him like Ukrainians. I won Ukrainian, he stood me on my head. But in the European final, actually, as it goes, but he doubled my score. It's just, anyway, it's not about my sad story of my career, but they spin on the target. They're in front of you, they throw a shot or two shots or three shots, and then they're almost behind you. That pivot, I love it. It's my favorite word in the dictionary, pivot. But they do it better than most. That's what I learned it from. Where did you get there? And they do it better, and obviously Usyk does it really well. Lomachenko has different slight movement. His feet move faster, and there's more mechanics to his movement, I feel. Usyk, really, hands are high always, and he sways back and forth, and he dips low, and he pivots quite well, but he does more blocking, I think, because he's a bigger guy. The movements, he doesn't have to move as much, because even the light shots, you feel them. That's the thing with bigger guys. We always say that smaller guys, I love a smaller guy, is technically better, but we don't have that natural strength. Now, even guys who can't punch as a heavyweight and cruiserweight can hurt you. Or not deemed as punchers. Everyone can punch. That's the problem you have there. So Usyk doesn't load up with his shots and rides off combinations, but you feel him. You must feel him. Because he's a 14 stone or now maybe a 16, 15 and a half stone guy, maybe for this fight. So you'll feel that shot. How can you not? And that's the difference. And that's where Joshua has to be. That's where I thought Joshua should be heavy. Not too. You want to be mobile and light. Well, you don't want to be mobile. Actually, I don't feel. I think you want to be light, where you're not carrying too much muscle mass to blow out your ass. That's my favorite saying today. No, at the midway stage. But also, you want enough weight to make Usyk feel where you are. You're no longer the cruiserweight now, who's king of the tree, who's bigger than all the other cruiserweights, who can bully him with his physical presence, make me panic. See, you spar with, like, when I retired, you only go back to for an example, I'm not comparing myself to anybody, by the way. Well, I've sparred with some kids who were good, better than me now, because they're younger and faster and fitter, but I could play with them. Because I knew by then how to just, again, stand in front of them, dip and slip, put them under pressure. And my presence was enough. But when I sparred with like a light heavyweight, who again wasn't as good as the smaller guys, because he's 6 foot and I'm like a midget, even I could make him miss, he didn't panic. Because I'm not the physical, nothing's here to scare him. Nothing's there. I'm too small. And that might be the case for Usyk on Saturday night, where he might miss and slip and dip and catch Joshua with shots. But the presence is not there to intimidate him. When he slides in close, Joshua doesn't get scared. Maybe. I don't know. Time will tell. That's the intrigue of this fight. Some of these things that Usyk does so well, it's all an intimidation factor with ability. But will it work against a bigger guy who doesn't care? I don't know. He had to box a little bit different against Chisora, of course. But Chisora was like a bullet in the gate, so he had to adapt. And he showed he could quite comfortable, I felt. But Joshua won't run at him. We'll try and box him beyond the jab because that's the way he fights. But ultimately, he has to go out there from first bell, Joshua, and try and stamp his authority early. I don't mean like a lunatic and gamble and then be knackered after the first 3 or 4 rounds because you tried to knock him out, it haven't worked. But every shot has to be solid. You step behind every punch. Body mechanics. He did a bit with Pulev, I think. With Pulev, he wasn't quite sure when, like the 3rd round, which should have been stopped possibly, didn't know when to put his foot on the gas. It seemed he was a little bit in not two styles, 2 minds of what to do. Do I stick to my plan of being neat and disciplined, or do I go for it? So I always feel that. I've always felt this since, though he boxed great in the rematch against Ruiz, and he boxed good against Pulev, which was a good little fight, Pulev, because it was a fight a good fight that it was past his sell-by date. It was a real good match for him. But I think the Joshua of old, really, we need more of that for all these fights coming up, whether it's Fury, Wilder, or Usyk. It needs to be more of the destroyer again. That's what people were wary of and scared of and intimidated by, and what made him the champion that he became and all the fighters that he beat. The thing with, and you spoke of this on your podcast, might be with Mike Costello or the other fella you did it with, the zone guy, talk sport guy, and the boxing social guy, is there's vulnerability to Joshua as well. So, and he knows that. It's not like we watch him go, oh, every time he gets hit, he looks like he's hurt. He's been hurt and he's been knocked out. So that vulnerability he's well aware of. And that's where there's a worry that, I think the Pulev fight helped this, but there's a worry that he doesn't fully engage because he's scared of getting hurt. When I say scared, I don't mean that he's scared.
Wary,
yeah, but it's everything's, there's nothing wrong with being scared. But it's not like, oh, I'm not going to do it. But he's well aware of it, and what he because once you're hurt, you're hurt. Because you can rewind clock. Oh, let me have time out. Let me do that again. You're hurt. You're there. Then there's no going back. If he sees it, you're at his mercy, and then you have to show how tough you are, and you don't want to be in that situation. But I do think that the physical weight and presence gives him an advantage, but it's not a big one.
We've seen that in the past from well-known heavyweight champions. Lennox Lewis, after he was knocked out, he changed his style. Vladimir Klitschko, knocked out, changed his style, came back, got knocked out again, but evolved and changed into becoming a more, let's say, risk-averse fighter and somebody who would not take as many risks. The early Vladimir Klitschko, who was knocked out by Corey Sanders, that kind of Vladimir Klitschko was more of a combination puncher, would stand and trade. And compare that to the Manny Stewart Vladimir Klitschko that came later on in his career. They're 2 completely different fighters. Do you think that's what we've now seen in Anthony Joshua?
Yes, I think so. But again, I think there's styles for fighters. So certain heavyweights, a slower, more ponderous heavyweight, he can get on his toes. He has more energy than that guy. So he can dance and box his head off. But he's not going to do that with this kid. I can't see it. I can't see, because he might have success and he might stay out of trouble, but I can't see how he dances round. Usyk can't close the gap. He doesn't get no credit for that. Usyk, I don't think he's this master boxer, and he's a cruiserweight Lomachenko. He's a pressure fighter, and clearly, so he likes to come forward. He wants to come forward. He wants to get you back. Please dance around. He can cut the ring off easily. As a southpaw as well, quite easier than most to cut the ring off against an orthodox fighter. So he'll enjoy that. And also, because when you're moving around, when you're on the balls of your feet, the power's not quite there. You have to stop, gripping the canvas, and then throw the shot to get real power. I know that because I was always on the balls of my feet, and I never hit anyone or hurt anyone. So because I didn't want to risk what I could do to the risk of the potential of getting hurt and whatever it is. But so Joshua dancing round, against a Chisora, say he was boxing, or even a Dillian White, we might have more success. Because these guys have been more flat-footed and looking just to take your head off when the opportunity arises. But Usyk won't do that. He'll pepper you, force you to make a mistake if he's not hurting you, or tire you out, and that's his tactic. But either way, he's always the one throwing first, and I think you have to take that away from him. So I think you have to be the one pushing forward. But it has to be hands high, neat, left foot on the outside of the lead right foot of Usyk. That jab's got to play a factor. If you can't get the jab into play, you're struggling. And that right hand, you got to hit him hard, hit him early. Anywhere on his body. Anywhere. The heavyweights in the 80s used to throw that jab. They wouldn't throw the jab, they pushed the jab. And they just push your shoulder, just to push you off balance. Just push you off balance all the time. Just to line you up for the right hand, or just you have to reset, tires you out, because it's a big, heavy, lumpy, 17-stone arm pushing you back, and whatever it was, and that was a tactic. It looked stupid and ponderous and rubbish to us, but it works. It was effective, and then the rounds go on, that tires you out. And he throw punches as well, but that was a weapon in itself. And I think he has to not do that, but he still has to be the one pushing forward, without a doubt. All this thing about dancing around trying to box the boxer is just stupid. It's like, if you can't punch, why would you punch with the puncher? And if Usyk is the boxer of these two, which he is, then why you can't get up your toes and box with the boxer? And there's different ways of boxing, and Joshua is a boxer, and he's neater and better than what people give him credit for. He has a nice balance to his work. He's vulnerable. His chin's always a bit too high, I feel. He's maybe a little bit too static, but he punches correct. He turns from the hips and the shoulders, so he throws that right hand's a bullet. It's straight and it's solid. The jab's good when he gets it. He's adapted a bit now, so he's a little bit of a bounce to his step, but I think that's got to sort of like not be as bouncy as he was in the Pulev fight, I feel. But he has a good rhythm to his work, and that will help. That will help him to get more fluency in the punches. But he's still, if he ain't going forward, he's not winning. I can't see it.
Do you think this is the hardest fight of Anthony Joshua's career?
I think tactically and technically it is, because he has to get everything spot on. I'm not sure if physically it will be the hardest fight of his life, but does that make sense? I don't know, because he's not going to be in a war. He's not going to be like a Dillian White war, or even Ruiz, the first fight in many ways, but he got hurt and he tried to battle it out. People forget that, to be fair. Well, he had a go. He lost his way a little bit, but he had a little pop. It's not going to be one of those fights, but I think, yeah, I do. I think tactically and technically, for all the people involved, there's so many things to Usyk's game that can just ruin you. And there's subtle movements. I mean, you can see him actually not that subtle, but there's small movements he does. Again, that what he does, he does a little bounce, he just dips a little bit low. When he dips low, the legs come out, and our right foot goes a little bit forward, and when he comes back up, he's on you. How did he get there? But also, I think Joshua's right uppercut, which is fantastic, by the way, in close, will be a real good weapon for him if he gets the left foot on the outside. Because then when Usyk takes that step and steals your space and comes in close, you fire that right uppercut and he's square onto you. That's where you want him. Now, if your foot's in the inside of Usyk's stance and Usyk does the same movement again and comes up, he's here. He's over your left shoulder, and you've got to turn to throw the uppercut, and you're square on to get hit. So, again, tactically, technically, it's all these little adjustments. Yeah, they have to get spot on. So I think the camp would have been more tech work than anything else. And maybe losing the weight is they want to be really fit, because they know. That's another thing about Usyk engages his brain for 3 minutes of every round. And that's so tiring, unless you've done it your whole career. Like muscle memory, like being able to throw 100 punches around. If you don't practice it, you don't do it. So they always think, those fighters. He's a constantly thinking fighter all the time. That's why he never loads up. He's always loose, because he has to save energy to think. People don't realise how taxing it is when you're thinking. Thinking can make you panic, make you confident, all those things. The endorphins, how you react to everything is very important. But when you're not used to engaging your brain 24/7, pretty much throughout the fight, then it's horrible. I mean, absolutely, like, you're knackered. You're done. Just using your brain. Forget about the physical stuff. Forget about what's happening there. If you're constantly thinking, oh, where is he? That panic sets in. And Usyk does that too. So he does that as a cruiserweight so well. As a heavyweight, we haven't seen it yet, but he's only had 2 fights. So against people he didn't really have to. either couldn't do that to or didn't need to do it to against Witherspoon, and he couldn't really do that with Chisora because Chisora was just running at him like a lunatic, and he just had to use his footwork to evade and I thought clearly outbox him. So yeah, so I think those things there, and that's where, again, to go tactically and technically for Joshua and his camp, this would have been a different fight and a harder fight to train for than any other. And might be any other ever. This might not be the best fight he ever faces. It might be the most technically proficient fight that he'll ever face. Might not be the best one, because the best one might be happening, the winner of the fight in 2 weeks' time, of course. But it's still, this fight will be something that he's never encountered before. He won't have to use his sort of intelligence and thought process against Fury, who's a nightmare to box, by the way. But you still know what you got to do to beat him, like without really having to train for it. With Usyk, you think there's so many other things to think about. How do I beat him? I'm giving my opinion, but I don't really. It's a waste of money, really. I don't really. No, but I haven't sat. Cause I'm not sitting down with a book like Ron McCracken is, or going through super studying him, because I'm not fighting him. Why would I bother? I'm thinking how. Every movement he makes. Why does he do that? What's that for? What's this for? I mean, throughout his career, you'd have to watch him. That's what they have to do. I think for this fight, they have to do that. So there's so many other things that they have to. It's important that Joshua's really on point. But then ultimately, if all that don't work, you bite on the gum shield and go for it. That's what makes boxing great. Sometimes all the tech stuff and and the tactics and all this stuff to get everything right. Sometimes it boils down to who wants it the most. And I don't mean who wants it the most in the heart. I mean who wants it. Like, I've never been in one of those, by the way, so I'm not talking out of any sort of knowledge of that, but. It is, though, isn't it? That's what makes boxing a fascinating sport. You get fighters who are technically and physically crap, but they just got it. Like, they just got that. They can just walk through walls. Joshua's not one of those, as we've seen. That's another worry. Will Usyk chip it away at him have an effect? Will he panic when he gets hurt on the chin? Will he think, oh, this is Ruiz again? There's so many things to think about. But I think the heavyweight division, that's always a factor. To be fair, he's not boxing a guy who can hit like Dillian White, or can certainly hit like Wilder from a far distance. So that's a comfort, I would have thought. He's boxing a smaller guy who's never really a KO artist at cruiserweight, but he wasn't. So there's things to be confident about.
Yeah, even at cruiserweight, he had that kind of grind you down over the rounds.
Yeah.
Marco Huckie stopped, I think, in the 10th round or 11th round of the fight. So he would kind of, even Tony Bellew, I think it was 7 rounds, 8 rounds, like just slowly build towards wearing you down and then landing the shots really and going to town. And when the fighters had kind of, as you like to put it, were blowing out of their arse.
It's great saying that, wasn't
it? It certainly is.
I used that first against, I was speaking to Joe Calzaghe when he boxed Hopkins, and I said, listen, he'll be blown out of his ass after 5 rounds and you'll beat him.
He was down in the first round.
I didn't. I told him that. He'd be done in the first round. But then...
final one on Joshua Usyk before we move on.
It's a great fight, by the way.
It is a great fight. I think
we all moan and groan about it. It's a great fight.
It shows what a great fight is by the fact that you've spoken about all of these variables and we're still really none the wiser. I think it's fair to say, look, Anthony Joshua goes into the fight rightfully as a favourite, but there are a lot of variables to it. There are a lot of talking points and things to discuss, which, as you say, shows it's a great fight. For me, it's the most interesting fight that doesn't involve 2 champions. And I know Wilder's not the champion anymore, but because they've been kind of tied up together, you kind of put them as one sort of thing. With a champion against a non-champion, Joshua Usyk in particular has been a fight that we kind of remember that iconic photo of Usyk in the crowd after the Povetkin fight where he's got his like Sith Lord hat on and he's looking at Joshua, and he is somebody we obviously had Shane McGuigan in here just before you, and he said that he'd been around him in the fight hotel, and you get the feeling sometimes from fighters where the fighter's confident, but maybe the manager's running around because he's worried, and he's worried about the gloves or the promoter or the trainer. He said everybody's ice cool, everybody's calm. They all believe they've come over to win, which obviously is not uncommon for the fighter to feel that way, but you'll get 1 or 2 members of a travelling entourage who are a little bit highly strung because they're nervous. He said there's none of that, and you've kind of seen that over the years of Oleksandr Usyk. He's always made no bones about it. He wanted to move up from cruiserweight and fight Anthony Joshua, go straight to him through the WBO route, which is what he's done in a roundabout way. I know it's taken a little bit of time. He's had to take some step-aside money. Poor him. But he has got his shot now, and he really looks and feels as though he believes this is his time.
What is it? He dominated his division, and he did it all on the road. A Ukrainian going to Russia, just anyway, passing through is enough. To fight a Russian, who, by the way, is a horrible man. I don't know as a person to fight against. Gassiev, you wouldn't want to get in the ring with him. He's an animal. He got in there like in a big tournament, by the way, in the final. All the pressure there, didn't care, welcomed it. We just welcomed it. Even Box Hunter in America.
Box Hunter in America, Glavacki in Poland, Hook in Germany.
Hook in Germany. He's not German, he's German-based, isn't he? Bellew in London. The one in Liverpool, of course, but they're in England again.
Manchester, Billy.
Manchester, that's right, sorry, yeah. So, it's just, it's even closer then. So, but either way, the guy has no fear. He doesn't care because he knows how good he is. He knows how good he is. But also, with all those people who are just supreme, who've never been beat, who just think they're unbeatable, you gotta make if you can make them question themselves early, when they've never had to do that before. He's been in fights where he's had to tough it out. But, I mean, you really hurt him, which Joshua's capable of doing. Joshua can punch. He's not a Wilder, put you to sleep with one shot punch, but he can. He's heavy-handed with every shot he throws, by the way. And so I think if he can do that early, then maybe possibly if he can make Usyk question what he's doing, then you have the initiative. Then you step on him. Then you don't give him chance to breathe, and you do what he does to you in a different way. But then you dictate the pace. Once I've never seen a fighter dictate the pace against Usyk ever. So say that again? Ever. But you haven't, have you? And then maybe that's the way to do it. Many have tried, but they failed. Chisora tried, to be fair, to take the game, to dictate the pace to him, but he did it in Route 1, and so it was too easy for...
Yeah, and it was only for the first 3 or 4 rounds.
Yeah, but it was too easy. He just stayed out of the way. No, I don't see that. I didn't see that fight remotely close. I don't know what people were talking about.
I didn't either. A lot of people, I feel like it's been kind of... I don't know whether it's history's been rewritten, because I felt like people on the night were kind of giving Chisora a little bit more credit than certainly I was, and obviously you by what you've just said there. I didn't particularly feel that it was a very close fight.
I haven't seen the only fight, even like Bellew did really well, and he's never going to win the fight, but he did well. And you'd be proud of yourself. You just beat the guy there who's the second best cruiserweight who's ever lived, in my opinion. Some people may say he's first. I don't, but he's been brilliant. But the only fight I've really seen him where he's that I can remember off the top of my head now is the Bradis fight.
The Bradis fight.
Where he had to... And I think
majority decision, that was.
But he won it. Yeah. I think there was only one winner in my mind. But he had to really think and adapt. So that was a worrying side. That was more worrying for me, that he can adapt and think. But that's not real pressure. Bradis never really hurt him. Never really, he's against again a big cruiser, but not a massive cruiserweight, and he's always been the bigger. It's a different thing now. And I think Joshua's massively underrated, to be honest. I do. I think Joshua's can box really well. Listen, for me, Fury's the number one. Nothing wrong with that. But this is not about Fury. Could you say Joshua's underrated and they go, Fury would batter him? People say that straight away and you go, I didn't mention Fury, I just talking about Joshua. But I think Fury's number one in my book. I think Joshua's clearly number two. I do. I generally think that. I think he can box really well. He's come back from adversity and come back and dominate the guy who beat him, though safety first, but he still did the job. And I think he has a nice style. He punches direct and correct, and that goes a long way. And his hands are high, his elbows are tucked in nice and tight. And I think he's evolving into a better fighter now than he was back then. I just hope he doesn't forget about what made him get to where he is, and that ultimately is that raw aggression. He has to keep that. And add on what he's learned, not change himself totally. Otherwise, he becomes the boxer that can be outboxed. That's the problem. He got at one point, especially if it's for Usyk, certainly for people like Fury, he's got to blast right through him. That's where he wins those fights. Whether he knocks him out or not, but he has to blast right through him enough to make them just try and survive rather than try and outbox you or beat you up.
Final one on the main event.
You said final one.
Well, I did, and then you
interrupted me.
Carry on. Ade wouldn't have interrupted. But anyway, final one on the main event before we touch on the undercard. Can Usyk get a decision against Anthony Joshua in the UK?
Yeah, why? Oh, God.
Can he?
Well, why can't he?
Well, I thought Vladimir Klitschko was beating Joshua at the time of the stoppage, and he was
so
down
did
on
I.
all three
So
cards
did I,
by 2 or 3 rounds, I think.
I don't think you can.
Okay, let me rephrase that. Do you think Oleksandr Usyk will pursue the knockout as opposed to
I don't know.
win a 7-5 on the
No,
cards?
I think if the knockout presents himself, he'll go for it full-heartedly. But I think you're a boxer where he always boxes. And all this, like, I don't want to like criticize you now. Do I call you a knob? I don't know. Can I call you a knob?
You called me worse, so you might as well. It's fine.
But no, but I'm afraid now because you're like One Lunged up and all that. Is that a band? They have a good band, weren't they? Remember One Lung?
We're all much younger than you, Barry.
Okay, I made that. There's no such band. They couldn't really sing. No energy. But no, seriously, like you can't say, can you get this? I know you can, but it's all that just encourages conspiracy theorists and dodgy judges and all the rest of it. You can't. You just don't fight.
I'm not necessarily that Usyk will be thinking that himself, but in your opinion,
yeah, I think he can. I don't. You have to approach a fight, and we have to look at the fight as in everything's going to be done fair and square. Obviously, I know boxing is massively subjective and all that crap, but I think that we have to just take it on its merit that things will be done above board, which they always are. Like I don't see all this.
Always.
I don't see corruption in the UK. I see incompetence at times, or mistakes are being made, or things like that. But I don't see corruption. Like, people go mad about fights, but when you're watching a fight from home, you watch a fight in its entirety. So you just go. I say this all the time. Fed up with myself. And so you go. If you have like Egerton versus the kiddie box, that French fella box the other day.
What was his
I
name?
commented on the fight.
Yeah,
Still can't say.
Brilliant fight.
I couldn't say his name for 12 rounds.
Yeah,
Jiu-Jitsu.
Jiu-Jitsu, that's it, yeah.
So like, it was 12-round war. You're watching that fight and you're going, it should go either way. But if you're scoring that round by round, for me, Egerton wins it by 5 rounds. That, to me, it could be a bit closer because so you see a round. But I want to mean round by round, but on its own merit. So a 12-round fight, I've said this before, a 12-round fight is 12 one-round fights to a judge. That's how we should look at it. It's red corner, blue corner, there's my card. Forget about what happened. Brand new, 2 new fighters, red corner, blue corner. That's how it should be done. And then, so then when you do a rip like that, then a round that every round's nip and tuck could go anywhere, could be 12-0. Though it doesn't give the away fighter, the fighter who lost the away fighter, sorry, could be the home fighter. I just dropped my foot in it. It doesn't give the fighter who's lost any credit, but that's how the scoring system is. So it doesn't. So maybe it should be changed. I don't know how you change it. You can't give. If there's like 10, if there's like 5 close rounds, and I give 4 to you, me and you are fighting. I give you fucking 4 rounds, but they wouldn't go. Oh, I give you the last 4. I bet that was a close round, but I give it to Barry instead. Because that's corruption. You can't look at it like that. So, like, we watch it at home, we go, it's a close round. But we're not scoring it like that. And also, we have commentary and different things, and all things that are clouding our vision. That's why I don't like commentators scoring fights. Because they're talking, they're doing loads of different things, and I'm to score a fight, giving you an opinion for you to either agree with them or argue against. With the judges, their sole job is just to score a fight.
I did a Zoom call with some of the judges from the WBC right at the start of the first lockdown, and they actually mentioned that. They mentioned kind of that's one of the difficulties with being a judge, when you kind of give credit to a fighter for doing better than he was doing in previous rounds, but he's still losing the rounds. But there's always the temptation, which obviously nobody overtly said I do that, but there is always a temptation to reward somebody for doing better than they have done in previous rounds.
I had it with Yard versus Kovalev. And it might have been the round just before he almost stopped Kovalev, and he did better than all the others. He was doing well. He was losing all the rounds, but he thought he was being competitive against a guy who'd never been that level before. And he did better than all the other rounds. And John Rawlings said, "Oh, that might be a round for Yard." And I went, "I just don't think he did enough." Because that's how I saw it. And I wanted to give it to Yard. I really wanted to give it to Yard because he did better in that round. But again, that's a point in case, a case in point that even though he did better, it wasn't enough. And if you do it on that scenario that it's 12 one-round fights, then they're 2 new fighters. So you can't put anybody what's happened before. And that's how you can look at it. Because remember, the referee's looking at the fight about stopping the fight. No, if a fight's been battered in the first round, or people see a cut when you're at home. You see someone get cut and you go, and you give it to the other guy because he's bashed up. Or the end of the fight, they go, oh, look at the state on his face to his face. But that means nothing. Some people get bashed up. And also, I might get bashed up in 1 round, but 111.
Pacquiao horn.
I can tell about math, and I'm holding my 4 fingers. I'm 111 rounds. But it's true, isn't it? Like this, you miss me with the left hook, I get a black eye. You miss me close enough, I get a black eye. Other people, you hit them with a brick, and they don't, and there's not a mark on them. So it's all these things that we go mad at home about. And I've done it as well. When I've watched the fight, I go, what are they on about? That's so close. But I haven't judged this round by round, and I know that because I have to do that for my job. And then I realise how hard it is. So saying he can't get a decision on points based on a theory that he might get turned over, and maybe that's what you were saying. That's clearly what you were saying. I think that might happen. Who knows? But we can give a prediction on a fight based on...
I agree. Yeah, I agree on
that.
Yeah,
I should have just said that then, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
That would have saved us 10, 15 minutes, man.
Undercard.
Yeah.
I know
is there an undercard?
I know you're thrilled about the undercard and you can't wait to talk about it. So let's start first of all with Callum Smith. Now, the last time we saw Callum Smith in the ring was a one-sided loss to Canelo Alvarez last December. Now at 175 pounds, so new weight class. Also has a new trainer in Buddy McGirt. Excited to see Callum Smith back? You expect him to make any noise at 175 pounds? I'm of the opinion that the division isn't as strong as it was 4 or 5 years ago.
Time is everything, isn't it? I think he will. I think he's big at the weight. You got a guy here who's going to walk right at him. So who's tough, but really will be eating punches. I feel, to be honest. And because Callum, he can throw that uppercut if he throws it. I think Buddy will keep a lot of the stuff that he does, but we'll have him throwing his punches from a longer distance. So that uppercut that he can throw so well, Callum Smith. I think Joe Gallagher had him throwing it too close. So it just gives the other guy a chance to throw back. I think Buddy will have him throwing it from a longer distance away, and I think he'll have more success with that, especially with the Castillo he's boxing.
Learning Castillo.
That's what I think. Yeah, I think he gets a stoppage as well, but I think it's a one-sided win, from a one-sided loss to a one-sided win, and it's the sort of the good fight he wants. A guy who's going to come at him. I think he'll make him look good in stages, give him a little bit of a test, but not enough to... I know he made Bivol work a bit, but not really. But Bivol's one of those fighters where, to be honest, like, he looks crap, and then looks brilliant.
He's gone like over the years. It feels like he's gone from a fighter who was kind of significantly outclassing fights to just doing enough now.
That's what I mean. Yeah, but I think he needs a test.
The Beterbiev fight is the fight to make.
He's bored, Bivol.
It's got to be the fight to make Beterbiev.
Yeah, it's got to be, haven't it? Or what's the point, isn't it? You're looking for that cash-out fight, or a fight to inspire you, one or the other. I guess you can't just roll on fighting people who you're much better than forever. You almost come against Richards. He didn't. He never lost it. Losing the fight, but I mean it
was a competitive fight.
But on paper, that should be an easy fight for him. Yeah. On paper, people rise to the occasion, of course, but that's the worry. It's the fight that was Richards' fight of his life. But Bivol, it's just another an inspiring fight on paper because he doesn't know who Richards is. So I think, but for Callum Smith, I think this is a fight that will introduce him into the light heavyweight division. He'll look good doing so, and then he'll get a title shot. So I think, it's a good bit of matchmaking.
Out of those guys, let's say the champions, and then the other big names at 175. So you've got Bivol, you've got Beterbiev, Joe Smith Jr., Gilberto Ramirez is now at 175 pounds as well. Yeah. Which one of those fights would you like for Callum Smith?
I wouldn't say Ramirez though, because I think a busy fighter will cause Smith trouble. I'd say Joe Smith. I just think that it's tough, Joe Smith, but I just think stylistically he's easy to hit as well. I think that'll help Callum Smith, to be honest.
I thought he lost his last fight. Boxed Maxim Vlasov.
Yeah, Vlasov, isn't it? Yeah.
Vlasov can fight. But
he can, but I'd fancy Smith over Vlasov as well, to be honest. But I would think him. I would go that route if you could, to be honest. And also, I don't know how old Callum Smith is now. He's not old, but
he's 31.
He's had a longer career than what you think. He's had he haven't had loads of fights. But he's been around a long time now. And how long does he keep going? How inspired could he keep? The inspiration to keep going on is it all just about money? He earned the money from that super series.
This is the thing because after the Canelo fight, I was quite surprised to see him come back after that. We had Paul Reddy, who obviously looks after him now with STN Sports. I
didn't know that.
Yeah, so they now manage Callum Smith, and I'd spoken to Paul, and he'd made the money in the World Boxing Super Series. Yeah. Then he boxed Canelo Alvarez. He'd become world champion, made a pile of money, and 175 pound maybe is not as strong as it was a few years ago, but a few years ago it was stacked with killers. Whereas now it's still, it's not. It's
the reason why you say super middleweight, to be honest.
Yeah, I remember. So I spoke to him before he was initially supposed to be boxing Jürgen Bremer, and I did an interview with him, and then Bremer pulled out and he ended up boxing Nicky Holzken. And I remember speaking to him at the time, and there was rumours that the WBSS were going to do the 175 WBSS the next season. And I sort of said to him, like, win the World Boxing Super Series this year, maybe you can move up in weight and do the 175 next year. And he went, nah, I think I'll be all right, actually. Because at the time we had Kovalev, you had Bivol, Beterbiev, all more closer to their prime, certainly Beterbiev, and Bivol was performing much better. So, yeah, do you think that's potentially, something that he stayed at the weight too long? Obviously, making those. It's one thing being at the weight, as you know, but it's another thing performing at the weight. And
yeah, of course it is. I think that might have an effect on him. Losing to Canelo is not a bad loss, to be honest. No loss is good, but when you lose to an all-time great, which he clearly is going to be, then sometimes the reflection of that is good on you. Oh, you lost to Canelo, did you? That's not a bad thing. But hang around the weights. You can. I think you have to move up a long time ago, and he's held it back because obviously, you got to give away your world title, which is a bargaining chip financially, of course, massively, and you're going in a weight where there's no easy fight. You can't. He couldn't have walked into a world title fight. That's the truth. He couldn't have. No, he couldn't have. He would have been unprepared at that weight. He would have had to take a warm-up fight and then maybe another one, and then he's waiting his turn. So yeah, it's just time is everything in sport, isn't it? Where you are at the right time and all that. But I think it's a better time than ever now. Well, better time than it was recently, but there's still hard fights there for him. And if he wants the tests, but again, you pick up a title. The thing in this generation, like in my generation, is you can pick up a title now and still avoid the top 2, 3, 4, possibly 5 in the world. That's the truth.
Before we talk about the rest of the card, we mentioned Canelo Alvarez. Did you see his face-off yesterday with Caleb-Plant?
I did, yeah. I seen the, yeah. I applaud Plant. Like it's a weird, it's so contradicting. Like, because I'm a Canelo fan, but I hate drug cheats. I'm not saying he's a drug cheat.
It's a difficult.
Will they sue you or will they sue me? I don't know. It's your podcast, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. We'll seek.
I didn't call anyone a drug cheat.
We'll seek legal counsel from Caleb-Plant because he called him everything under the sun. Yes.
The thing is, though, he tested positive or something. But then I was listening to someone else a long time ago. It might have been Dan Rafael, and he was saying about loads of other sportsmen in Mexico.
Yeah, the Mexican football team, I think the Olympic football team in 2016, I think like 17 out of the squad of 21 or something.
And they can't all be taking gear. Can they? I don't know, But either way, but if there is a problem, because I know they inject their meat with loads of steroids or all that stuff or whatever, so maybe just say it was genuine. Let's just say that. I don't believe that. Maybe, who knows? But then,
Move on, Barry.
But what I'm saying is, I applaud him for standing up. If he believes that was the case with Canelo, it's good. But also, I was thinking, just asking for trouble.
Yeah.
Like, there's a fight you were going to get beaten anyway, let's be honest. But now you're going to get beat up. That's the truth. Because even when he threw the shot, like, he made him miss easy enough. I seen the replay when he looks like he slapped him. Like, yeah. He's in trouble, man. He's in big trouble.
Did you? I mean, you've mentioned there that you felt that Canelo would have won the fight anyway, and obviously yesterday's kind of furthered that. Do you give Plant any chance at all?
No, I don't. Plant's a good fighter, by the way. I like him. More energy than a Billy Joe, I think. But I just don't see how. I just can't see anybody beats him. I just can't. I used to think it was size with Canelo because one day he's a big guy. It's just not going to work. But that hasn't worked. Because you can't hurt him. And you can't keep taking punches forever. He doesn't take punches flush. But when he does...
Rides them.
Once you've seen Golovkin, right? And I was ringside for both those fights, by the way. And he hits. I mean, like you think he hits Golovkin because you see him knock people out. When you see it... I've seen loads of fights in my life in the pub. I've seen two really big hard men have a fight in the pub once. And I honestly almost pooped my pants. I'm not even lying. I felt it. I just clenched my cheeks. I was going to poo myself. It was mortified. It's scared. Two big men. When you hear that, it's horrible. And that's what it's like watching Golovkin throw punches. it's like that. You go, you don't want to put your pants, but you sort of thinking, oh God, whew, taking them, but listening to him is horrible. But then you see that with Canelo, and he just takes it and comes back. You think, how can you beat the guy you can't hurt? That's the truth. That's what Golovkin came across. I thought he won the first one, maybe the second one as well. But either way, he came up with a problem where then he hit the guy with his best shot, couldn't move him. So what's Plant going to do? Billy Joe Saunders couldn't outbox Canelo. And he evolves from every fight. I don't know if he's evolving anymore now, to be honest. I don't think he's had to evolve any further than he is now. But everyone goes back to Lara.
It's 7, 8 years ago.
Or Mayweather. But he learned from those. He took some defensive stuff from Mayweather. A little twist he does now when he makes you evade shots. That's not a Mayweather move. But he learned from Mayweather about judging the distance right. And so he evolves from every fight. He's a better fighter now. He's a bigger, stronger, more intelligent, thoughtful fighter who's a bully. Because he walks through sometimes he don't care about. Like, look at him what he did with Callum Smith. Even with Billy Joe. Billy Joe was having success, and he was having success, Billy Joe. But was there any thought or any feeling that Billy Joe was going to win the fight? To you?
No.
Even when he's landing, you go, he's doing all right here, Billy. It's just no thought, is there? There's no. Same with Callum. No thought he was going to win the fight at any stage. Even when he'd have a little bit of success, you just think he's letting you. He's like he lets you do it. Have your little play. Go on, mate. It's not that way. I mean, and you're talking about good world-class fighters here. I mean, and genuine world-class fighters, not like the modern era of world champions. Like genuine world-class fighters. Billy Joe is a sublime talent. On his day, he give you anyone nightmares. And he just never looked like he was worried what he was doing, Canelo, with him.
And that was a fight as well where Canelo kind of went into it with the bit between his teeth. There was a lot of bad talk, bad blood in the build-up and animosity. And I think we're going to see that type of Canelo. I mean, because sometimes we'll see Canelo come out and he'll kind of... Even the Callum Smith fight, he dominated the fight, but there wasn't necessarily the malice, the nastiness that we saw from the opening bell against Billy Joe Saunders, coming out, sinking them left hooks into the body right from the get-go. And then obviously we saw the shot that closed the show, or the injury that Billy Joe Saunders sustained then. And I think we're going to see that version of Canelo Alvarez on November the 6th.
Plant can move. Plant's a good mover, but he can't move as well as Billy.
He's also somebody, in my opinion, who struggles after 4 or 5 rounds. We saw him box Caleb Truax.
Yeah.
And Caleb Truax obviously beat James DeGale and, has been a decent fighter over a period of time, but I think it's fair to say he's past his best, and there's certainly no Canelo Alvarez. Yeah. Caleb-Plant looked great for 3 or 4 rounds, and then after that, the energy levels came down, and he kind of, in the end, sort of laboured to a points win in the end. It was very clear, he wasn't in any danger of losing the fight, but... If you're gonna look at your, obviously it's a long time ago. If you're gonna look at your Laras, your Austin Trouts, your Floyd Mayweathers as your kind of blueprint to beat this version of Canelo, even though it's such a long time ago, you're gonna have to be on your bike for 12 rounds. And can you beat? Going back to the initial discussion on Joshua, can you beat a Canelo Alvarez by moving away from him for 12 rounds?
And you're not gonna knock him out, you would feel, but like Plant can throw in flurries. But they're like Barry Jones flurries. They go tip tap, tip tap, tip tap, which works for certain fighters who got slow feet. But not with him. No, it won't work. That won't work. That'll be no good.
There's not the deterrent.
To throw those flurries, they go from being long punches to 3/4 punches. Well, that gives Canelo enough chance because he won't panic under that array of loads of 15, 7 punches, whatever many punches there are. He won't panic, and he'll slide in, and he's on you. But you've reduced the distance because you're throwing those fast punches. They're not fully extended when you throw punches like that. And he'll just take that little ½ inch closer to you and crack you with a left hook. Or hit you with a body shot. Or break your arm. Whatever he wants to do. I just don't see it working for him. I think you have to have really cute angles like a Lara type thing. On the spin on the balls, your feet around him. But then you have to hit him from an angle he doesn't see and hurt him. Or just stop him in his tracks for a second so you can move again. I sort of think I almost feel like he's unbeatable. I don't see anyone right now with this. I just think that moving up in weight would beat him. I thought that's what would have happened.
But even then, we've kind of discussed 175 not being the force that it was 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah. I think 3-4 years ago, it's fair to say that we would have backed an Artur Beterbiev to get the job done. I think I still...
Who can be hurt, by the way?
Yeah,
can be hurt.
Can be hurt. Jeff Page Jr. had him down. Callum Johnson had him down. But now, he's not the Beterbiev of a few years ago. I think... probably he would be the one. If you're going to throw somebody in to beat Canelo, he would be the one.
But them two, what a fight that would be.
That'd be a brilliant.
Though I think, but asking like a 5 foot, they say 5'9".
He's tiny.
What's his name?
Canelo. He's tiny.
Oh, calm down. He ain't that tiny. He's about 5'8". He's a bit bigger. He's a bit bigger than me.
Yeah, you were a super featherweight, though, Barry, not a super middleweight.
I know that's true. But either way, I'm still tiny. But like he's tiny for the weight. I know he's massively. He's bulked up now, on whatever. But like he put on loads of weight and he's adapted to the weight. But him and Petreviev just be a war. Because Canelo's pride, you've seen it with Golovkin, his pride alone wouldn't allow him to dance. Because he can box, he can move. We've seen him in the past. He can move, he could dance if he wants to. He wouldn't. He just couldn't do it. You got that Mexican greats that all those Mexican greats have. That ultimately going out in your shield is more important than winning a fight. Showing how tough you are is more important than winning a fight. They just happen to be able to win fights as well. So they have that gift, but they just got that in them, built in them.
There was elements of Canelo moving in the first fight, but the second fight he held the middle of the ring and he pushed Golovkin back, and it was actually Golovkin on the back foot behind the jab, and Golovkin's whole kind of shtick was Mexican style and come and have a fight.
Box well.
Oh, he did box well.
By the way, it was a shock, wasn't it?
I think kind of in the controversy, however you saw the two fights, I think what gets lost in that is they were two brilliant fights. They were two brilliant fights, and I don't know about you, but I would still like to see a third.
Yeah, fight. I would. I think I don't see anyone else winning but Canelo now.
Yeah,
but I just think, and the age of Golovkin, but I just think those two. Sometimes you have a perfect dance partner. You really do. And I think them two are the perfect dance partners. They would never have a stall fight. I mean, that's a legend. No, all these fighters boxing now past the sell-by date. Like the Triller. If Triller's still going in 10 years' time, Canelo and Golovkin is the fight.
Wouldn't surprise me to see Canelo still fighting in 10 years' time.
Probably, I think that's the only thing that's going to beat is age slowing down. The reactions going. Your chin can last forever. You can't have a great chin forever. You can't have great timing forever. Your power must reduce at some point. Though I think they say that's the last thing to go. But your timing, judgment of distance, your eyesight, all these things go, and injuries over time as well. But that's the reason why boxers go on longer than ever before now. Sportsmen go on longer than ever before is because the training methods are better than they were back, say, when I was fighting, and boxers before me. Now, we used to use bag mitts we wear bandages, but little bag mitts with no padding on, really, to punch the bags. Now they're punching the bags with sparring gloves. Now, if I would have punched the bag with a sparring glove when I was 16, I would have got a whack round the head from my trainer for ruining a pair of sparring gloves. So, and people warm up and warm down, and they wear the right gear and all the rest of it, and then they have personal trainers to stretch them and all these things that we never knew about. So it doesn't help, but they're not better fighters for it, and they're not even. I don't even think they're better conditioned, because there's not one fighter here who could do more 15 rounds better than Yaki Lopez or something like that. I don't think. But for longevity and for your body, and certainly for the aftercare of the sport, it will help them.
Okay, well, we're not gonna. I know you're desperate to speak about the rest of the Joshua-Usyk undercard, but we'll have to leave that for today because we are running slightly close to the wire. But before we go, just want to talk about you purely because we've seen all of the changes with the broadcast landscape and what have you. What you got going on?
Nothing. Keep me in touch. That's why I'm here, really. If I had anything going on, I wouldn't be here. No offense, but that's the truth. Like, another thing, it's like I'm freelance now, so I don't, pandemic's not been great for me, but it hasn't been great for anyone, has it? It hasn't been ideal. I'm healthy. No offense. No, so I did Channel 5 the other day. That was good, and I was doing stuff for Sky, but I don't know what's changed with the boxer coming in and all that. I don't know what's going to happen there. I'm going to have to wait and see if there's a space for me. BT don't want to know me. Are they got no love for me? I don't know what I did to upset someone there. Don't know. Anti-Welsh. No, I can't say that. They used Enzo Mack, didn't they? Yeah. Oh! And I can't even say they don't like short people because they got Carl Frampton, which is a great acquisition, by the way. Fantastic.
Very good. He's really good analyst.
He'll flourish. He'll flourish. He'll be their best win, actually. And he'll help someone like David Hay, who's a massive name, but Frampton knows so much more, I feel.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that David's not always the most avid boxing watcher. No,
but he's David Hay.
Yeah.
And he's earned the right to do what he wants.
You
can't begrudge him that. Like, but like anyone else, I'm a gun for hire. If you got the money, I got the time.
Okay, well, final. We spoke around the point, but I am going to push you for a prediction this Saturday.
Joshua.
How does he get it done?
I don't know. Intelligent.
But this is why I'm asking you for a prediction. Is it Joshua by decision, Joshua by stoppage, early, late?
I think...
I'm going to put you on the spot here. By the way, our record of picking fights on the Boxing Social podcast, particularly mine and Barry's, is absolutely terrible.
Yeah, but I don't pick... that's not my job, is it, to pick fights? My job is to say, this is what he
Don't
does well.
try and get out of it. Make a
It's
prediction.
irrelevant, isn't it? I don't know. I think Joshua will win, and I think it will be 1 of 3. 1 of 5 outcomes. Right? Injury, corruption, right? Someone fails a drug test, right? The roof collapses, or he stops Usyk late. 1 of those 5.
Okay. All right.
So he stops him late, then it goes to points, I think. Yeah, I think.
Yeah. My official pick is Joshua by decision. I think Joshua gets it done by decision, but I think there's going to be some hairy moments, particularly in those middle rounds, as you said, and certainly late on in
That's the thing. Those middle rounds there, from like 5 or 6 to about 10.
I don't expect much to happen in the first 3 or 4 rounds.
Usyk flourishes there, because if he can make you work hard, and that's where Joshua has to take the initiative. That's important. But those early rounds are more important for Joshua, so he has success in the later rounds. Ooh.
There we go. Right, Barry, before we let you go, do you like my T-shirt? Do you like it? So you're an avid boxing enthusiast. So we've got some shorts. These are actually going to be available on the Boxing Social Shopify account.
I got to see whose shorts have I?
So you've got to tell me whose shorts these are.
So that's Naz.
Yeah, so we've got
Naz. That's Josh Taylor.
Josh Taylor or Ken Buchanan.
Ken Buchanan.
We'll accept Ken Buchanan and Josh Taylor for that one.
The top left is...
this one?
What's that? That's Hatton.
It's Ricky Hatton. Well, you don't have 3 for 3 so far.
Okay, yeah. That's a Kronk Gym. Is that
That's
Tommy
the Kronk
Evans?
Gym. So we'll have any Kronk fighter for that.
That's what's his name from Rocky film.
Apollo Creed. We'll also accept Tyson Fury for that one.
Muhammad Ali.
Yep.
Okay. That's Pacquiao.
Pacquiao.
Ooh.
You'll kick yourself if you don't get this one.
Who's that? I don't know. Sorry. Fraser?
Nope.
Go on, carry on then.
No. This one's going to get a lot of people, I think.
Hang on, that's not the Tyson had no marks on his.
So it's Tyson. If you go back and look at Tyson Spinks, he has markings.
Well, I had it right though. That's all.
So that's Tyson. So that's right. But this one, you've not got this one. No. I think you'll kick yourself for not getting this one if you don't get it.
Oh, I'll go on. We'll go on forever otherwise.
Marvin Hagler.
Ah, no. No.
So I told you you'd kick yourself. But there we go. Available soon on the Boxing Social Shopify. We'll get Barry a size. What size do you want, Barry? Thank you very much for stopping by. It's been great.
12 to 13-year-old.
Yeah, I was going to say we're not doing.
I really want a T-shirt. See.
Thank you very much for popping by. It's been great to see you and catch up after a long time away. I know you've wanted to come back desperately, and you've watched on with envy. But it's been good to have you back on the Boxing Social podcast. So yes, thank you all for stopping by for episode 23 of the Boxing Social podcast. Remember, it's also going to be available on Boxing Social, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So do check that out if you don't want to see our faces, which I don't blame you for. But from me, Rob Tebbutt, from him, Barry Jones. Thanks very much for stopping by. We'll catch you next time.